Hi guys! So today I'm going to show you how I dyed a few articles of cotton cloth. This video includes how I prepped, mordanted, dyed, and cleaned a thrifted t-shirt and pillowcase. I found it to be pretty wise to use some scrap fabric, secondhand clothing, or something I already have in the closet that I don't care too much if it gets ruined in the beginning stages of learning how to solar dye with plant matter. Dyeing doesn't always go as planned, and it would be a shame to have a beloved item come out undesirable. So, first off, I weighed both pieces of completely dry cloth separately. This will be important information when it comes to the mordant bath. The t-shirt weighed about 80 grams and the pillowcase weighed about 100. Then, I brought out the good old dish soap and baking soda for the scour bath. I use a scour bath to remove all potential barriers that may affect the mordant or dyeing process. I placed about half a teaspoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of Dawn dish soap. I filled my pot up enough for the material to be fully submerged. Having accurate measurements isn't super imperative for this step, it's just to really strip and clean the fabric. I let it simmer for about an hour, stirring every 10 to 15 minutes. I then let that cool down and rinsed both the t-shirt and pillowcase with cold water. I wrung them both out really well and set them aside for their mordant bath. Over time, washing and sun exposure makes material color fade in our clothes, even more so when dyeing with organic material, such as the plants that I use. So, to put it simply, a mordant is something that will coat the fibers in my cotton items that will make my dye more vibrant and tougher to wash out. Cotton tends to work well with alum, so today I will be using some potassium aluminum sulfate that I purchased off of Amazon. Alum can cause breathing issues and skin irritation, so I made sure to open all of the windows in my house and used gloves during this process. What I used in this process was a small paper cup, a tub of warm water, enough to submerge my cloth, a measuring cup, and a wooden spoon. All of these items I sacrificed for my mordant method and marked them so I wouldn't use them in the kitchen for other things like cooking. Alum isn't extremely toxic, I just think it's important to be wary of certain chemicals until you are fully aware of the effects it has on you personally. So this is where some basic math and the weight of my cloth comes in. I used 15% of the added weight of my cotton items. Altogether, they weigh about 180 grams. So 15% of 180 is 27, and 27 grams is about a quarter cup. So I took a warm cup of water, added the alum, and made sure to stir it until it was completely dissolved. I then placed my cloth in the mordant bath, made sure both were fully submerged, and mixed it well. I then brought the bath outside, let it sit for about 2 hours, and stirred it about every 20 minutes or so. I then rinsed my fabric with cold water, wrung it out really well, and placed it in 2 separate dyes I had prepared with roses and Oregon grapefruit that you can find a video of on my channel. The smaller the jar, the more of a tie-dye effect you'll get. I did my best to get out all of the air pockets that I could and just kind of make sure that the fabric was just completely saturated in the dye. So then I took them both and just placed them on a shelf in my kitchen and let them sit. I didn't do too much throughout the week, just watched the fabric turn a more saturated and rich color. After a full week, I pulled both of them from their jars and was sure to wring out all of the dye I could back into the jars. That way I can reuse the same dye at a later date. It'll be a lighter color, but I'm all about reusing anything I can in our house until it is completely spent, especially after putting hard work into something that I got some success out of. I hung them up outside to dry and then brought them back inside to let the dye sit for about a week in my cloth before rinsing. It was very interesting to watch the color of my pillowcase change from a deep red to purple in this process. The t-shirt remained a bright neon yellow. I then washed out my kitchen sink and filled up just enough lukewarm water to hand wash my dyed fabrics. While it was filling up, I put in about 2 tablespoons of baking soda. I made sure to fully mix it in and then started washing my grapefruit dyed t-shirt. As expected, a lot of the dye came out since I did 0 rinsing or cleaning directly after the dyeing process. So then I wrung out the shirt really well, drained the sink, made sure to rinse out any remnants of yellow dye, and repeated the steps for my rose petal dyed pillowcase. I will say, I was intrigued by the color change in the pillowcase. I noticed it starting to turn a more emerald green color as I was washing it. I'm pretty stoked that the grapefruit toned down from a neon to a soft, buttery yellow. I then tossed them both in the dryer and waited very patiently. The t-shirt turned out to be soft and buttery. It reminds me of my grandmother. She had my grandfather paint their front door and a few pieces of furniture this exact color. So it's a bit nostalgic and matches the exact chairs I have from their cabin that my grandfather painted for her. I'm beyond shocked and stoked on this rich forest green from the red rose petals that came out. It most definitely has purple undertones and I find it very beautiful. My husband has been asking for me to create some earth tones to dye with for some hunting clothes come elk season, and this is absolutely perfect for it. All in all, I would call this a success, and I can't wait to try more colors this week. I'm thinking of some alder and maybe some sweet peas. I hope this video can articulate how easy and simple this can be for at-home dyeing. It just requires a little bit of creativity and time. In the future, I think I'll do a little less of exact measurements, a little more of just an eyeball method, and potentially letting my material sit in its dye for longer. I live quite the busy lifestyle through the summer, and sometimes it's tough for me to focus on a task for a long period of time, so I like the idea of letting something sit and coming back to it at a later date. It makes it seem less cumbersome, but also keeps me accountable for finishing a project through. Thank you for watching, have a lovely day, and happy dyeing!